The storm rolled in from the west with a low growl, shaking the shutters of the small cabin. Abigail Turner pressed her palm against the wood, feeling the tremor of wind and grit that pushed through every gap. Nights like these usually kept strangers away. But tonight was different. A sharp knock rattled the door once. Then silence. Before she could rise from her chair, the door creaked open and a man stepped inside without asking. His coat was soaked, his boots caked with mud. A pistol hung loose in his hand, not raised but heavy enough to remind her what he could do. His eyes were black with exhaustion, his jaw tight, his breath clouding in the cold air. Abigail gripped the back of her chair. "What do you want?" "Food. Warmth. One night." His voice scraped out like gravel. Her mind raced. In town, she had overheard whispers of a fugitive roaming these plains, a man wanted for killings, robberies, worse. She had thought those were just stories men told to pass whiskey. But now he stood in her doorway, dripping rain onto her floorboards. He closed the door with his boot and took a step closer. "Don't scream. Don't fight." The fire crackled weakly in the hearth, the only light between them. Abigail's pulse thundered in her ears. He was taller than her husband had been, broad-shouldered, with scars crossing the skin beneath his beard. Everything about him looked dangerous, cornered, ready to strike. Her mouth went dry. Still, she forced herself to speak. "I have nothing of value. You have bread." His eyes slid to the half-loaf by the fire. "That'll do." For a long moment, they stared at each other, the storm pressing against the walls, the silence weighted with threat. Abigail felt trapped, like a rabbit beneath a hawk's shadow. If she begged, he might grow cruel. If she defied him, he might shoot. So she reached for the only thing she had left, her name. "My name is Abigail Turner." The word seemed harmless, but the effect was not. The outlaw froze in place. His grip on the pistol faltered. He blinked once, twice, as if he hadn't heard right. "Say it again," he demanded, his voice sharper now. Her spine stiffened. "Abigail Turner." The man staggered back a step, eyes wide. His breath came rough, almost panicked. Then, without another word, he turned, shoved the door open, and disappeared into the storm. The wind roared through the gap he left, tossing sparks from the fire across the floor. Abigail remained frozen, her heart racing, her name still echoing in the silence. Why would a wanted man, armed and desperate, flee at the sound of her name? By morning, the storm had broken, leaving the land washed in mud and silence. Abigail hitched her horse to the wagon and drove the rutted track into town. Her mind replayed the night before, the outlaw's face when she said her name, the way his eyes widened, the fear that chased him into the dark. At the general store, neighbors lingered on the porch, voices low. As she passed, they fell quieter, then louder again once she was inside. Abigail ignored it, selecting flour, salt, a bit of dried meat. When she reached the counter, Mr. Dobbins, the storekeeper, leaned in close. "Strange business last night," he murmured. "Riders say a posse tracked an outlaw across the ridge. But he vanished near your land." Abigail kept her hand steady on the counter. "I wouldn't know anything about that." Dobbins studied her face a moment too long. "Funny thing. Men said he's killed 3 folks this winter already. But if he passed by your place, you'd be dead too." Her throat tightened. She forced a nod, paid her coin, and left. Outside, the whispers followed her, women in shawls, men by their wagons, all with the same question in their eyes: why was the widow still breathing if the fugitive had come so close? By the time she reached the livery, Sheriff Calhoun was waiting. He was a tall man, his badge dull with years of dust, his eyes sharp as a crow's. "Morning, Mrs. Turner," he said, his hand resting on the butt of his revolver. "Strange thing. My men found boot tracks leading right up to your door. Storm near wiped them clean, but not enough." Abigail steadied her voice. "Tracks wash all through the valley after rain." The sheriff stepped closer, lowering his tone. "This man's dangerous. If he spared you, there's a reason. Folks will want to know what it is." His words cut deeper than a threat. Because she had no answer. Not one that made sense. Back home that evening, Abigail lit a lamp and sat by the hearth again. She thought of her late husband, of his brothers, of the family she had left behind in Missouri. Could her name carry something from the past she did not fully know? The wind moaned outside. Then, hooves. Again. Slow, deliberate, circling the cabin. Abigail rose, lamp in hand, her heart pounding. The door creaked once more, and a shadow fell across the threshold. The lantern flickered as Abigail stepped toward the door, her pulse hammering in her throat. The sound of hooves slowed, then stopped. For a breath, all was still. Then came a single knock, soft, deliberate. Her fingers trembled against the latch. She should call for help, but no one would hear across the miles of empty plains. She should reach for her late husband's rifle above the hearth, but her arm refused to move. She opened the door. There he stood. The outlaw. Coat still damp from travel, dust clinging to his boots, pistol holstered but close to his hand. His eyes scanned her face, searching, almost desperate. "You spoke your name," he said low, as though the words themselves hurt. Abigail gripped the doorframe to steady herself. "And you ran. Why?" The man's jaw flexed. He shifted, as though torn between flight and confession. Finally, he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "You don't remember me," he said. Her brow furrowed. "I've never seen you before in my life." His stare hardened. "Maybe not. But I've heard that name every day since I was a boy. Abigail Turner." He paused, breath ragged. "The woman who cost my brother his life." Abigail's chest tightened. "Your brother? He was hanged in Missouri. Said he stole a horse. Swore he was framed by a Turner. A farmer. Your husband." The room spun. Memory struck her, her husband's hushed arguments at night, men arriving at their door with threats, the day they left Missouri in haste. She had asked questions then, but her husband had always silenced her with a look. Abigail found her voice. "If your brother was guilty, the court decided it." The outlaw's face twisted. "Courts don't matter out here. Names do. And yours carries blood." Silence pressed heavy between them, broken only by the snap of the fire. Abigail's hands trembled, yet she held his gaze. "My husband is dead," she said finally. "If you came for revenge, you'll find none here." The man's eyes flickered, anger, grief, confusion. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it nearly broke. "I should kill you where you stand. But something in me says I can't." Abigail's breath caught. For the first time, she saw not just a fugitive, but a man haunted by loss. He turned sharply toward the door. "This isn't finished. The sheriff's men will come soon. They'll want you as much as me." Then he was gone again, leaving only the howl of the wind and the echo of a truth Abigail had never known: her husband had dragged another family into ruin. By dawn, riders appeared on the ridge. Abigail spotted them from her porch, 3 deputies, rifles across their saddles. Dust curled up behind their horses like smoke. The sheriff had not wasted time. She set a kettle on the stove, hands stiff with dread. She had done nothing, yet guilt clung to her name like burrs. Her husband's shadow had returned, and with it, suspicion she could not shake. The knock on her door rattled the cabin. Sheriff Calhoun entered without waiting. His hat dripped with morning dew, his boots heavy on the floor. "You've kept quiet long enough," he said. "That outlaw, he came here. Men saw the tracks. Why are you still alive, Mrs. Turner?" Abigail stood straighter, though her knees weakened. "Because he left." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "Not good enough. Folks say your name saved you. Makes a man wonder what you're hiding. Maybe you're in league with him." Her stomach twisted. "I've hidden nothing." But even as she spoke, she knew it was not true. Her husband's past, his dealings in Missouri, the trial that ended another man's life, she had turned her eyes from all of it. And now, the price had come. The deputies searched her cabin, overturning chairs, peering beneath the bed. Finding nothing, they mounted again, but the sheriff lingered. His eyes stayed cold on hers. "If he comes back, you tell me. Or you'll hang beside him." When he left, Abigail sank to the hearth, the fire low and trembling. Her name had become a noose. That night, she heard it again, the crunch of boots outside. She gripped the rifle this time, raising it toward the door. "Don't," a voice called low. The outlaw stepped into the glow, his face gaunt, his clothes torn from days of running. His gaze landed on the rifle, then on her hands shaking around it. "You'll have to choose soon," he said. "Them or me. Sheriff won't stop until one of us hangs." Her breath shook. "Why come back? Why not kill me and be done with it?" "Because I saw your eyes," he muttered. "You didn't know what your husband did. You've carried his sin without even knowing it." For the first time, something in his voice carried no threat, only weariness. He reached into his coat, pulling out a small object wrapped in cloth. He placed it on the table between them. A carved ring, worn smooth. "My brother's," he said. He swore a Turner gave it to him before the trial. "Proof of betrayal. Proof your husband set him up." Abigail stared at the ring, her throat dry. Her husband's past was no longer rumor, it sat in her cabin, solid and undeniable. And with it came a choice she could no longer avoid. By the third morning, the sheriff returned with 6 men. Their rifles glinted in the weak sun. Abigail heard the horses before she saw them, hoofbeats pounding like a drum of judgment. She stood at her door, the outlaw's brother's ring clenched in her hand. Calhoun dismounted, face set hard. "Step aside, Mrs. Turner. We know he's here." Abigail's heart hammered. In truth, the outlaw had returned at dawn, slipping into the barn, half-starved and limping. She had given him bread, not because she trusted him, but because something in his broken voice had shown her more truth than her husband ever had. The sheriff's men spread across the yard, rifles raised. Inside the barn, the outlaw stumbled out, hands lifted. Mud streaked his face, eyes hollow but unyielding. "Don't shoot," Abigail called, her voice cracking. The men froze. Sheriff Calhoun turned, scowl deepening. "You protecting him now? That'll hang you quicker than him." Abigail stepped forward, holding up the ring. "You want the truth? Here it is. This belonged to his brother. My husband gave it to him, then let the court call him a thief. He died because of it." Murmurs rose among the deputies. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Abigail's voice steadied, louder than she thought herself capable. "I lived in my husband's shadow long enough. I won't hang for his sins. This man has blood on his hands, yes, but so did the one you all praised in church every Sunday. The yard fell silent. Even the wind seemed to hold. The outlaw looked at her then, eyes burning with something between grief and gratitude. You didn't have to say that. She turned to him. And you didn't have to leave me alive that night. We both chose differently. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the sheriff spat in the dirt. Take him, he ordered. 2 men bound the outlaw's wrists. He didn't resist. As they led him to the horses, he glanced back once at Abigail, a faint nod of respect passing between them. When the posse rode away, Abigail stood alone in the yard. The sky had cleared, the storm finally gone. Her name had nearly destroyed her, yet she had spoken it out loud, claimed it as her own. She walked back inside, placed the ring in a small box, and set it on the mantel. The fire glowed steady, warm against the silence. For the first time in years, Abigail felt that silence as comfort, not punishment.